Yeah, so I am going to present today about TeachOSM. So this is a program of OpenStreetMap US that focuses on leveraging OSM for educational purposes. I'll dive into that further, but it's a good complement to Rory's presentation later as well. So I'm going to talk, for those of you who are not familiar with it, I will dive into what the program is, but also focusing on kind of the future and growth of this program, because it is an initiative that's been around for a long time. So definitely a lot of work that's been done and on the roadmap for the future as well. So TeachOSM, to kind of look at it, the whole picture, it's a program that's really designed to serve as like a hub and a resource network for students and educators to leverage OpenStreetMap for developing geospatial skills, for civic engagement, for project-based learning. It's less focused on how to map a building and more focused on how students can be learning and becoming global citizens through OpenStreetMap. So it's really the focus of these efforts. Even though it is a program of OpenStreetMap US, it is still largely volunteer run. So we have an amazing steering committee that helps keep the wheels turning on this. Importantly, they are all educators, which I think is a nice aspect of this group. So everyone you see here is either a high school or a university level educator. So they provide a lot of guidance on the education space and the practicality of what we're doing. So ensuring that any work, tools, curriculum, etc., that TeachOSM develops and provides, that it's actually going to be usable in a classroom or another educational setting. In addition to the steering committee, though, we also have an education working group. So it is the OpenStreetMap US education working group, but TeachOSM facilitates it. And this is open to anyone. This group meets monthly. It's largely, at this point, educators that are attending. So this group meets to share experiences, what they're going through, share challenges, come up with solutions with each other, but also to work on different aspects and tasks for the program, such as curriculum development or testing out tools, etc. So taking a step back from that, as I mentioned, TeachOSM has been around for a while. So it actually started in 2013 as a grassroots project with many actually of that steering committee or a few members of that steering committee. But it was something that was started by educators for educators. And then along the way became adopted as a formal program of OpenStreetMap US. So over the past 10 years of the program, the TeachOSM, with the power of volunteers, has been able to do a lot. So providing training for hundreds of educators, really focusing on kind of train the trainer approach. So equipping educators around the country to leverage OpenStreetMap in their classroom. And that's not necessarily geography classrooms, although that is a huge portion of the educators that TeachOSM works with, but also other groups, environmental science, history, geology. There's a lot of different subjects that TeachOSM has worked with educators on for using OSM. And also it's really developed this community of practice and focused on building curriculum that is largely plug and play for these educators so that they can take this and apply it to, if they are teaching about immigration or talking about climate change, they know how to leverage OpenStreetMap for those parts of their curriculum. So like I said, a lot of what TeachOSM has done so far involves curriculum building, but really these are three of the main avenues of support and offerings that TeachOSM has been focusing on recently. So building out curriculum and modules, also building out networks and providing mentorship between educators and others. So in some cases, it might be OpenStreetMap contributors who are mentoring a teacher on how to leverage OSM, or just navigating simple things like signing up for an account and how to host a mapathon, things like that. So really bridging the gap between the OSM community and educators as well. And then finally, there's a huge appetite for professional development, and we've been able to offer a handful of educators grants to collaborate between schools as well. So diving into further the tools and the resources that TeachOSM provides. So there's a resource library with lessons and other materials. Just an example of what some of this curriculum might look like. This is how to leverage OpenStreetMap for understanding issues of equity in urban settings. Also, TeachOSM has its own task manager and is working to build out this tool a little bit more to support the learning process and students getting engaged in OSM, but I'll dive into that in a little bit. And then also just engaging teachers in person. This is at Geography 2050 in New York, an event that TeachOSM has been at and supported for years. So actually these are all high school teachers in this photo. So getting them out using field papers and learning how to use OSM in the classroom. So just a few examples of case studies of how teachers have used this. Jamie Dickinson, probably one of my favorite examples. She is a earth science teacher, and so she gets her students out mapping trees and doing global projects on geology and disaster risk. But this is just an example here of you working with her students to use OSM for understanding climate science. Just breezing through these a bit more quickly. Celeste is also, she's both a teacher using this in the classroom and, as I mentioned, a steering committee member, but she's done a lot of amazing work of leveraging OSM to teach her students about migration patterns and the refugee experience, particularly through hot projects. And also, I think importantly, she's really pioneered connections with the local indigenous community in her area, working with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe as well. And then Greg Hill is just another example of really trying to change how students' perspectives on geography. It's not just something you consume, but it's something that you can be actively a part of. So he's done a lot of great work of also helping bridge OSM with the AP Human Geography curriculum as well. So yeah, reflecting on the last 10 years, there's been a lot of lessons learned on OSM's role in education, particularly in the US. Even though TeachOSM is considered a global resource, a lot of the teachers that we've worked with are based here in the US. But there is some lessons learned that are shaping the strategy going forward. One of those being that current tooling and resources, it's a bit clunky for some teachers. The learning curve is significant. Teachers really don't have a lot of flexibility in their time or the curriculum that they're able to put in place. A lot of that is locked down. And then also, I skipped one of these. Students really need a way to get comfortable with OpenStreetMap. They need to be able to make mistakes, map a building incorrectly, map a 4,000-foot waterfall in New York City and learn why that's not something we want to be adding to the map. So yeah, these are just some examples of what the steering committee has come together to shape the future of TeachOSM. So really the strategy going forward is how to make OpenStreetMap more accessible to educators and students while maintaining that data quality. There's always a challenge of how do you introduce a high school student to OpenStreetMap and all the possibilities of using it for civic engagement and these other learning opportunities while also, not making negative impacts on the map. So that's really the focus a lot of TeachOSM's work right now. So developing things like the TeachOSM sandbox, so a playground, digital playground for students to learn how to map and make those mistakes and be graded on it, as well as launching a TeachOSM e-learning platform to provide those educational resources in a bit more of an interactive and self-paced form. The PDFs are great for some cases, but it's not the most accessible learning opportunity. So we've actually done some of this already this year. So we have, I would say, an alpha launch or a beta launch. I'm not sure which one it is yet, but we did launch the TeachOSM courses or the online learning platform. This has been opened to a select group of teachers at this stage to really test and trial it. But if you have any interest in checking it out and seeing what this looks like and maybe providing feedback, please reach out. I'll have an email for the steering committee at the end, and that can be opened up for you. But really, at the moment, that's focused on providing a bit more support and education for teachers, more so than students. But hopefully down the road, there'll be also curriculum and courses designed for students as well. And then, oh, I should have said launched because we're past December 5th. But another big thing, a lot of students and educators have been asking for ways to, certify and check off the work that they're doing. And actually, I have to thank Rory for kind of helping get this moved along. Rory reached out and asked if we were certified for President's Volunteer Service Award, and a few clicks of the button later, we were. So this is now something that once a year can be offered to students and educators providing their service, and fills a gap that's been asked for a long time. So we did also recently have a blog about this on the OSM US website if you're interested. It's not just for students and educators as well. So yeah, I will try to wrap things up so Rory has plenty of time. But really down the road, just really trying to focus on building out stronger mentorship networks. A lot of educators have asked for support in grading. How do you grade how well someone mapped a building is a big question. So providing a bit more support and guidance on that, and then localizing translations, etc. So there's a lot of ways to get involved if you're interested, whether through the education working group. Also, if you know educators that this would be that would be interested in being involved with TeachOSM or using these resources in their classrooms, definitely reach out or connect them with the TeachOSM group. So with that, I will just wrap up, and I'll drop that email in the chat as well.
But yeah, so I'm here to talk about YouthMappers. Thanks for this opportunity, guys. Really appreciate it. So first, I'm going to start off talking a little bit about USAID and the Geo Center, which is the U.S. government agency that I'm a part of or helping support. And the Geo Center is the team that I'm a part of. And so the Geo Center really helps USAID with a geographic approach to development. Development being international development and humanitarian response. So kind of, I think, unlike most of the people on this call, we're really internationally focused as an agency and kind of lead the assistance we give to the rest of the world that's not military related. And so the Geo Center, our team, really helps out with this by analyzing where need is most concentrated and understanding the effectiveness of our programming. And you can understand that map data is really important for this, especially in some of the undermapped areas where USAID is working, or where there's a lack of geospatial data. Our team's vision is to bring this approach to USAID and its implementing partners. A lot of the work is done by these implementing partners, people actually, delivering vaccines to clinics or building schools and things like that. And so within that, we kind of bucket our work into 4 different categories: mapping and analysis support, traditional GIS type work, capacity building, so helping develop other USAID staff members or implementing partner staff members or local partners in using and utilizing and conducting GIS type work, as well as a remote sensing program. Thank you, NGA, for helping provide all the US government with satellite imagery. We are folks who take advantage of that, and we can even provide that type of imagery to YouthMappers as long as that work they're doing is in the US government's interest. But I'm here to talk about YouthMappers and how that fits in. So what is the YouthMappers program that the Geo Center funds? It's a global network of university-based mapping chapters in 80 countries, helping cultivate a generation of young leaders to create resilient worlds and resilient communities and define their worlds by mapping it. So we're in, I think, 380 universities in 80 countries and have contributed over 20 million edits to OpenStreetMap in about I think, 8 years of existence that we've been in. So we work across the world. So even though we are not focused as an agency on the US, we do have chapters there. We have about 61 chapters in the United States, but many are not in good standing, to be honest. We have very low requirements to join YouthMappers. You just have to commit to doing 2 projects a year and submitting a final report or an annual report. And I think while we are really successful overseas, that's where the USA kind of targets our energy. We're really looking for other federal agencies to help support us with projects and work domestically, so our chapters there can be supported as well. The kind of implementation team for YouthMappers is a consortium of US-based universities. Arizona State University is the lead organization for the project. Texas Tech is where the principal investigator was originally, but moved over to ASU. But Texas Tech still provides money for us, so we keep them happy in their logo on our presentations. GW, who also does a lot of work with TeachOSM, works on data validation and our training work. And then West Virginia University does our small grants program and monitoring and evaluation. So YouthMappers, kind of what do we provide this network? What type of support do we do? We do specific project support. So if YouthMapper students have an idea of a project they want to conduct, we help them develop that project and do the mapping, whether it's remote or on the ground. We provide training to our network at different levels. We have kind of bespoke trainings as requested by the students, connect them to external opportunities. And then we also have a leadership summit where we bring kind of students who applied within the network competitively to a meeting to conduct leadership and technical training. And also a academy where we kind of followed the MOOC format to train our students on the basics around OpenStreetMap. With student scholarship, we also sponsor programs and attendance to different conferences, as well as our own conferences that we host for just the YouthMapper students. So all YouthMapper students are student-led, involve humanitarians, and support USAID programs, whether directly or indirectly. Indirectly might be just the fact that increased geospatial data in areas where we worked will help our geographic analysis that we provide USAID, because we do often leverage OSM data for it. Like I've mentioned, there's a lot of lack of data in the areas we're working. One of the classic examples in kind of the OSM plus humanitarian response space is the earthquake in Haiti. You can see the before and after picture where I think the entire country was mapped in like about 24 hours just due to the response in OpenStreetMap. Not going to go too much into OpenStreetMap. I think you guys are pretty familiar with it. Pretty awesome tool to coordinate large-scale mapping efforts in different areas and kind of targeting different geographic data sets of interest to USAID programming. So, whether we're interested in hospitals, schools, travel networks, OSM is a great tool to generate that data in a collaborative way quickly. Another aspect of our work is participatory and community mapping. So a little bit outside the OpenStreetMap ecosystem, where we get pen and paper and get communities to draw different assets that they find valuable. This picture is from our project where we're supporting a USAID program that was looking at bike infrastructure in Malawi. And we were trying to understand the community's issues around access to different markets, education, and government services, and had them draw kind of like the routes they take to access those and highlight the different obstacles they're facing. And that was completely facilitated by YouthMappers. We took a training of the trainers approach where we trained YouthMappers to help conduct these community mapping projects. And then we, in turn, created campaigns for them to add that data that was relevant into OpenStreetMap based off of these maps. We do a lot of field mapping and survey. Huge fans of Cobalt Toolbox, ODK, Open Data Kit, to facilitate kind of that street level information in a way that you basically fill in the gaps of attribute data that you can't really get from remote mapping of satellite imagery. And then as the training goes, kind of put those into 3 different buckets. I mentioned the YouthMappers Academy, but we also do a lot of peer-to-peer training where we connect different YouthMappers chapters who have different capacities to train each other. One example of this is in Latin America. Our students there have a little meeting they call a cafecito. So like a coffee chat where they share best practices and have a really informal discussion about working in the OSM ecosystem. And then we also do kind of targeted training of the trainers programs where we'll look at different parts of the network that align with USAID interests and try to target training there to kind of foster the OSM and YouthMappers communities in those locations to where we see that there's some extra help kind of needed. Yep, so just peer-to-peer learning. You can see one of our events here where YouthMappers are training other YouthMappers. Yep, more of the same. Yep, more of the same. Just YouthMappers Academy there. Student scholarship. So we have a regional ambassadors program, which is a competitive process for YouthMappers to apply to, where they get a small stipend to help grow the network and maintain it. It being university-based, students will matriculate every 3 or 4 years. So sometimes that institutional knowledge or that institutional like motivation is just lost. We'll have like a really strong, motivated, chapter president who leaves YouthMappers, and yeah, it just helps with that continuity. Fieldwork grants, another competitive application process where we'll give YouthMappers chapters small grants to conduct different fieldwork projects throughout the network. And then a leadership fellowship program, and I mentioned that earlier too, where we bring students in to receive leadership and fellowship training. Yeah. All right, almost done. So for the North America, we have 3 regional ambassadors, 2 based in Mexico, and then Annika, who's based in the USA, GW student. And then I just wanted to provide 2 examples of projects that YouthMappers have done in the US. This is Hudson Valley Mappers at Vassar College. If anyone knows my colleague Adele Birkenes, that's where she went, and where she was the chapter president of the YouthMappers chapter there. But they did different projects related to YouthMappers and to OpenStreetMap. One looking at mapping tree planting sites in Poughkeepsie, and another related to mapping community food and health resources at the start of the pandemic. And she wanted to point out that this is Esri Survey 123 in this picture, and she want how much YouthMappers has influenced the curriculum of the university's geography department at Vassar, because there's a lot more open tools being used now because YouthMappers students were exposed to it and kind of managed upwards and got their professors interested in this type of tech ecosystem. This is just when I share this presentation out, a list of kind of different blog posts YouthMappers have written. We have a very amazing blog from the students' perspective about different projects they worked on. If your agency is working on a specific project related to almost anything, you'll probably see it somewhere in the blog, but you can also just reach out and I'll help find the resources related to the type of work you're interested in. Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's super easy to affiliate with YouthMappers. Existing clubs can do it if there's already a geography club at your university. Just submit an application. It's a pretty short Google form. You said do 2 events a year, and you can hitch your wagon to other events that are already happening. Doesn't have to be one completely done by yourself. Submit an annual chapter report and keep your contact information updated. It can be any size of club. We have some that are just like one really interested student and one faculty advisor. So again, this is just for sharing once you get a copy of the presentation, but links to the blog, our activity map so you can see where we're working, the YouthMappers documentary, which is about, I think, like 10, 12 minutes or so. Super inspiring about how YouthMappers work is really affecting change on the ground. It's the Essential Mangroves, a really cool climate change related video produced by some arm of Amazon Web Services, and then our social media to stay up to date on all the work we're doing. And I'll leave it at that and just end with a call to really help us keep YouthMappers chapters going in the US. And anything you can do, reaching out to your alma mater or finding interesting projects for them to work on. They would really appreciate it. They're super motivated and do a great job. Over.
Thanks.